Public System Hopscotch is the largest PR company in France, and I came with bad news and a lot of hope for the PR industry. The bad news is that you see it's too much, and you know, of course, communication is not sustainable anymore in that way. It's even worse in our mailbox, so we cannot go that way for a longer time. Even this is the communication investment figures in France. As you see, it's decreasing. It's even worse in 2014. It's decreasing, especially in advertising and CRM, traditional advertising, I mean. And of course, it's a big opportunity for PR. Why? It's normal. It's normal. Investment should decrease because communication cannot be the only sector to escape the client's demand for simplicity and productivity. Of course. So we must apply this mathematical formula. Less is more. I think you all know this very mathematical formula. This is the only situation. The only solution is to apply this formula. It means you pay less and you get more. You get it for longer and you get it faster. That the client needs. It's simple. So we have to invent new strategies based on relationship, richer relationship, conversation. We spoke about that the whole day. So I came with an example. The example is from one of our clients called Fleury Michon. It's a processed food retail brand, very well known in Europe. Unfortunately, David Garbus, the head of strategic marketing, could not make it to join us. But it's a very good illustration to communicate with the conscious consumer we talked about this morning. So I let you see the video. It's a 3-minute video called Venez vérifier, which means come and check by yourself.
Fleury Michon is number 5 retail brand in France. The brand decided to launch in the 90s a great product called surimi. This surimi is what you guys call imitation crab stick. This product is a great product appreciated by French consumers. Anyway, we have never explained how it was really made of. And in France, it's compared to your chicken McNuggets. So we had to explain exactly what it was made of to have people fall in love again with this product. We made great efforts to clean the recipe. No additives, no preservatives, and sustainable fishing were decided 5 years ago, with a cost of more than 3 million euros per year in buying. How could we make it known to the customers? This campaign was called Venez vérifier. For this campaign, we made a great change in our way to work. We decided to use our campaign upside down. It was PR-centric, influencer-centric and digital-centric. So we started with a PR conference at the equivalent of you guys' Senate. We had more than 208 million impressions on this conference, saying that Fleury Michon was putting something very strong in the market, saying we need more transparency in what we eat. Then we started to invite customers, bloggers and journalists to come and join us from the supermarket up to the main product, which was pollock of Alaska. So they had to qualify, first with a cooking test, secondly with a swimming test, and finally they went with us in Alaska to check how this pollock product was fished and processed to make our surimi. In terms of result, we got more than 208 million contacts through PR with national news and main French newspapers. Secondly, we had more than 1.2 million views on YouTube with only $40,000 investment. And most of all, these 1.2 million views gave us 900,000 minutes spent with customers and the brand on very specific arguments that we had to explain. How the fisheries was made, how the product was made. These 900,000 minutes are more effective and more comprehensive than a standard TV ad with 20 seconds. And above all, what the most interesting thing is that we had a growth of 25% on sales on this campaign over 4 months. That is to say, we did not only achieve sales upscale within 3 weeks of a normal TV campaign, but we maintained this score over 4 months through PR, through the YouTube videos, and through the articles that the journalists and the bloggers could write. The overall cost of this campaign has been exactly the same than a standard TV campaign. We decided to invest less in TV and more in the production and in the PR, and we achieved a longer campaign with better results.
So as you saw, this is a good example, far from the technology and other clients we had, but it shows that we had a myriad of opportunities. If we are able to create high-value relations with client, consumer, influencer, we can now say, you can now say the sentence, you know, the famous sentence, half the money I spend on advertising is wasted, but the trouble is I don't know which half. Now we know which half is wasted, and PR are able to save this money. What he doesn't say is that his competitors spent twice as much money in traditional advertising, and his sales increased by only 3%. So it's finished, but there's two other examples. Brands are moving from creativity to innovation. We must do so. Tomorrow, we will be able to speak directly to fridges. This example is a real one. The Evian brand, you know, the water, they created the product called a drop. When you run out of Evian, your drop orders directly from the shop, and you are delivered directly home. So promotional messages have to be sent to the drop and not to the consumer. You save his time and you save your money. The population drop becomes one of the stakeholders for PR guys. And the last example, this is Darty. Darty is a chain of retail appliances in France and Europe. They invented this thing. If you have any issues, a failure, or any device, a broken device, electronical or electrical, you push the button and you are called back within 30 seconds, test a lot of time. You are identified, they know who you are, and there are 3 solutions. Either you fix it by yourself thanks to explanations. Second option, they fix it remotely because they have registered all your electronic devices, the software they have inside, etc., etc. Or they send you somebody within a few hours to fix it. But this is the only pool communication that enables us to do an amazing job in terms of earned media and PR, of course. Last slide, to wrap up. All you need is less expenses and more intelligence, less cost and more creativity, less push, more pull and for conversation, and less pitch and more proof. And I came with one proof for Surimi. Buy some.
Thank you, Frederic. I'll ask you now to take a seat. I am going to invite to the stage a couple of people who I think have interesting perspectives on this. Stephen Ertel from the WWF, that doesn't involve sweaty men throwing each other around, but is saving part of the planet. And Christopher Samuel from Monsanto, Asia Pacific. And I thought each of them would have a slightly different perspective on this. So I'm going to start by asking Steve to sort of comment on the frugal part of this discussion. I assume that as an organization that survives primarily on donations, there's tremendous scrutiny of every penny that you spend on marketing or promotion or public relations. And how do you go about trying to really build the brand and deliver measurable results while maintaining this sort of perception that you're not frittering your donors' money away.
Right. I thought that was fascinating to see the decline. I mean, I think for a nonprofit organization, we've seen very low communications budgets since, at least at WF, since our founding in 1960s. So we've kind of gotten used to this idea of doing more with very little in terms of particularly advertising and marketing budgets. We do a heavy focus on public relations. We look at, how can we use our capacity, whether it's our communicators, both in, we work in 100 countries, we have communicators in offices all over the world. Where can we come together around a theme or an issue and really work in concert on a single idea? I think the challenge at an NGO is that it tends to be, it's a mission-driven organization, and your decisions on communications tend to be more diplomatically driven than strategic, right? So everybody wants their fair share of communication support. And where we've tried to move away from that is to say, what are the few issues where we think we can have real impact if we bring all of our capacity together? We look at all of our channels. We have an amazing 5 million plus membership globally. We have our own channels like our website and our social media properties, as well as our magazine and things like that. But a heavy focus on earned media. And one recently great example is a focus over the last 18 months on illegal wildlife trafficking, which has become crisis levels globally, with elephant, rhino, and tiger poaching at unprecedented levels. And so we worked together on a campaign, a Stop Wildlife Crime campaign. Our focus was primarily on elevating awareness and urgency on the problem, and we had to target policymakers, we had to target businesses, and we had to target consumers. From that effort, there was a number of things involved, from public service advertising to web content to social strategies to a ton of sort of rapid response media work and events. And we saw an increase of 270% of media coverage around wildlife trafficking over that time period. And we saw real change on the ground in terms of getting President Obama to create a task force to fight the issue, working with Hillary Clinton at the time with the State Department. We saw real traction on the issue because we were able to build this sort of groundswell of a sense that this is a real problem, it's a crisis, and we need to deal with it.
Chris, we shared a platform probably about a month ago in Beijing, and I found the Monsanto story at the time very interesting. And the thing that Frederic talked about that I thought sort of gelled nicely with what we talked about was this idea of building richer relationships. And you've been sort of working along the food chain to really strengthen relationships between Monsanto and the agricultural communities that it serves. Tell me a little bit about how you've gone about doing that, and whether you've found that the power of sort of earned media and social media is beginning to outweigh more traditional heavy expenditure areas.
So first up, thanks, Paul. First up, I think our biggest learning, and it speaks to collaboration. I think the traditional model of attempting to engage target audiences or stakeholders is dead, where we put ourselves as an institution at the center and then say, okay, I need to engage my employees and so on and so forth. That model is dead. The model of the future, and I think it's been like that for the last 5 to 7 years, is one of collaboration, where you need to put the consumer, the citizen at the center, and then understand what your role is in the planet's ecosystem. And if you think about whether it's food or agriculture or this hotel that we're sitting in, it's easy for one to say, hey, I'm Monsanto, and I need to get my message out to ABC, and the hotel needs to justify why this hotel is going to be sustainable on this plot of land versus something else that's sustainable for, I don't know, marine conservation. But to understand, therefore, that you're not at the center, a consumer, a citizen is at the center, and you need to then justify, create that value in the ecosystem is the starting point. We started that journey around 2007, and I think credit to Edelman, who were our partners at the time, for getting us on that journey. Organizations, whether those are farmer associations, the traditional audiences like governments, economists, the media, civil society organizations such as WWF, Nature Conservancy, Conservation International, everyone who's actively working in that space of food, agriculture, environment are those that we engage with. So I think that's the first change. The second change, and I think about this session on innovative communication and the question that you asked of more with less, I think principally the 4 sort of C's of successful communication still hold true today. cultural insight, creativity, credibility, and collaboration. And I think about cultural insight, and again, in the food and ag space, since you requested that, the trends of where we are as a planet. Some folks talked about that this morning, not just on the food session, but on authenticity and trust, and there were other conversations as well. And I think clearly, organizations are going to have to justify, demonstrate, find shared value purpose to begin with. You can extend that to what consumers want to feel and an emotion, whether that's joy, love, pride, compassion. But the starting point is that cultural insight of a shared value extending to purpose, extending to emotion. And how do you join those dots to relevance for your brand? I think that's a starting point. And then it's about creativity on message or on medium. I'd like to cite an example from India, working with 6 million small farmers. The core of what they wanted was progress and pride in their farm produce and giving their families a better life. But it came to me when I was listening to Frank early this afternoon. In the north of the country, in certain parts, the symbol of that pride and progress is a mansion. And in the western state of Maharashtra, Madan will know, it's about gold and a home. So still a home, but a stone house versus a mud hut, an investment in gold versus a large mansion. So I think it's when you engage with those audiences, getting it right in that cultural and context with an element of creativity.
So, Frederic, one of the things that came into my head when I saw your topic heading was something that I've been talking about, which is this ability of PR people to deliver a sort of grainier, grittier, maybe more to the point of our earlier panel, authentic product for clients on a low budget. I have this sort of thing where, you give the advertising agency a brief and they look at it and they go, okay, we'll get a couple of supermodels, we'll hire the guy who directed Gravity, we'll set up a big photo shoot in the Bahamas. In 6 months, we'll have a wonderful video for you and it'll look spectacular. Whereas the PR firm says, okay, you know what? We'll get a couple of account executives, we'll take them down to Brighton Beach, we'll shoot it on our iPhone and we'll have it up on the website tomorrow. There's this willingness to sort of sacrifice an over-elaborate production for something that looks a little bit more real and happens a little bit more in real time. Do you get the sense that clients are beginning to think that, a little bit of authenticity and a maybe shaky camera can be, when you show it to consumers, more real and more impactful than the beautiful production that you typically get from ad agencies? And I'm asking this in full awareness of the fact that you're not a traditional PR guy, right? You come from a much more holistic sort of paid and sort of other media background.
Not paid, but maybe brand content, any kind of brand content. Beside my business, I am working in Entrepreneurs Association on the different process of innovation. And there is a new process of innovation called the Frugal innovation from India. Maybe all of you know that. I think PR, like NGOs and like Indian people, have always done frugal innovation without knowing that it exists. Because we do not have the huge means in terms of money. We do not have the huge means in terms of media, the power of massive investment on the massive media. I don't say mass media, I say massive. So we had to be smarter. And now the concept of frugal innovation is becoming the smartest way. And we did it for a very long time. So we are in a very good position to create some smarter, innovative strategy for brands, whatever they are.
Okay.
This is sorry me, but...
sorry, go ahead.
Paul, the principle of what you asked there, I think it comes down to credibility. When you think about, when you made the example of what you would do in advertising and what you would do in PR, the common element was the human being. So I think when you think about credibility and innovation, fundamentally, you need to humanize the message. And that could be, I was sharing with Stephen earlier, there's a phrase someone came up with a year or so ago called factivists. And I think we were sharing someone that works in his organization, Jason Clay, Bill Gates, Bono, for what they're doing on the food challenges of the world, healthcare challenges, poverty challenges, nutrition challenges, to be core in the fact and tell it in a fun, interesting way. But I think the principle is to humanize it and tell it credibly, whether that's the message or the medium. I just want to add that.
And I have a final question for everybody on the panel, which is, for years, I think one of the curses of the public relations industry is that we have been viewed by people in the marketing realm in particular as quote-unquote free advertising. And I wonder if this emphasis on frugality and this emphasis on doing more with less, it puts us in that, cheap alternative ghetto that has maybe held the industry back. And whether this is really, I understand why we're talking about it, but is it a smart positioning? Is there a risk that by focusing so much on our ability to do more with less, we're selling people on the idea that we are a cheap alternative?
There is another part in my presentation. I haven't done it today because we do not have any speaker from the media side. But of course, we will have to reinvent new flows of finance between agencies, advertisers, clients, and media, because it must be cheaper, frugal, but media have to find a way to finance their existence. I think it can go through PR agencies also. So now the difference between paid media and earned media is no longer relevant. We will have to, for instance, all the huge YouTube campaign we saw the whole day are based on small part of investment. It's never done by mystery. Somebody pays somewhere.
Stephen.
I think building a little bit off of what we've heard already, I think it comes down to credibility, right? So I think in this day when the organizations and companies are exposed in so many areas because of the rise in social media and because everyone is a content creator, as we learned earlier today, I think it's more important than ever for reputation management and to have impact that you're seen as a credible organization. And I think what we're seeing is that public relations, strategic communications are seen as ways to establish credibility. And people are less trusting of advertising and marketing, and I think that's really helped to position it.
Christoph, some very quick final thoughts.
Paul, I was thinking about the medium, and I'd say a smart marketer, all smart marketers love data, right? So if you look at the Asia Pacific, fundamentally, search engines and traditional media are still the top two most trusted mediums to receive a message that people invest to generate trust. Social media is still way down in that hierarchy. It's a little bit different in developed markets. So a smart marketer would get that and then choose his tools, whether that happens to be anyone in this room that has a title that says, client servicing with an ad brand or a PR brand. I think fundamentally they would focus on the medium and be culturally relevant. The other is thinking back to both the Edelman Trust Barometer research as well as what Cohn and Wolf put out there. Again, looking at the media, in India, Indonesia, Brazil, some of the biggest emerging markets that are having the conversations around climate, around water, around food, the biggest conversations on the planet, media is still one of the most trusted institutions. So a smart marketer would notice that and then pick his tools. But are there companies, are there institutions that are making a journey, whether that's a politician, a civil society, development organization, NGO? Sure, there are. And I think that's where the vision of the leader or a communication person, their role comes in to make that journey happen.
Great. Thank you very much, everybody. It was a great short burst of insight.